Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at AZAD Engineering.
Sounds good.
They're a global leader when it comes to this precision manufacturing.
Yeah.
Really critical components for demanding industries, aerospace, defense, oil and gas, even energy. And they've been working with these leading OEMs across 17 countries.
Yeah.
With a focus on complex, high-performance parts made from exotic alloys.
Exactly.
But here's the thing, their growth has been absolutely incredible. We're talking revenue surging from INR 122 crore in fiscal year 21 to INR 340 crore in fiscal year 24.
Wow.
It's almost 3 times bigger in just 3 years.
That's remarkable growth.
Right. And their order book, it currently stands at over INR 3,000 crores.
Yeah.
That's giving them a really strong revenue visibility for the future.
That's a really good sign.
Okay, so let's dive into what makes AZAD unique.
Sure. So, we talk about precision engineering.
Right.
What AZAD does is actually life critical.
Yeah.
They're manufacturing rotating parts like airfoils. These are found in aircraft engines and components for missile systems, even parts for hydraulic and actuator systems in aerospace.
Wow.
So these parts operate under really extreme conditions.
Yeah.
And they require specialized expertise in these exotic alloys. And this is what really sets AZAD apart from your typical precision manufacturer.
So it's not just about being precise. It's about understanding the materials and how they perform under pressure.
Absolutely. And a great example of this is AZAD recently secured a 7-year contract with Rolls-Royce.
Wow.
For critical components that are used in fighter jet engines.
Okay.
I mean, that speaks volumes about their capabilities and the trust they've built.
7 years with Rolls-Royce, that's huge.
Yeah.
It's not just any company we're talking about.
Exactly.
So they've clearly carved out this unique niche.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is it's not just about manufacturing parts.
Right.
It's that they offer this whole ecosystem.
Okay.
That we call a 360-degree ecosystem.
Yeah.
So they handle the design, the development, and even the specialized processes that are needed for these complex components.
So it's like a one-stop shop for these big companies looking for those very specific parts.
Exactly.
That's really interesting because it kind of streamlines the entire process for these companies.
It does. And it really highlights the value that AZAD brings to the table.
So where does the majority of their revenue come from?
So AZAD primarily operates in 3 key segments: aerospace, defense, and energy.
Okay.
And within aerospace, they make components for both commercial and defense aircraft.
Okay.
So everything from the airfoils that we were just talking about
Yeah.
to these intricate parts for hydraulic and actuator systems.
Hydraulic and actuator systems.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for me a little bit? What do those actually do?
Sure. So think of them as the muscles of an aircraft.
Okay.
They control everything from the movement of the flight control services
Gotcha.
to adjusting the seating arrangements.
Interesting.
They have to be incredibly precise and reliable
Yeah, I imagine so.
because they're essential for performance and safety.
So they're like these tiny but super important parts.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got aerospace covered. What about defense? What kind of parts are they making for that sector?
So in defense, AZAD manufactures components for missile systems.
Oh.
We're talking aft and fore-end skirts,
Right.
and even the igniter bodies for missiles.
Wow.
So this is highly specialized work. It requires you to have a really deep understanding of these specific materials and engineering challenges.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And what about their work in the energy sector?
So in the energy sector, they're making components for both traditional power generation systems and newer renewable energy technologies.
Oh, interesting.
So parts for gas turbines and steam turbines.
Right.
But also components for wind turbines and solar energy systems.
So they're not putting all their eggs in one basket. They're involved in kind of the old and the new.
Exactly. It shows their adaptability,
Yeah.
that they're looking towards the future of energy.
And it makes sense with the global shift towards renewables.
Yeah.
It's a smart move. So they're not just growing organically. They've also been making some strategic acquisitions.
That's right.
Bringing on board companies like Leo Prime Comp and VTC Surface Technologies.
Yeah,
And those companies specialize in different aspects of precision manufacturing.
exactly. So they're really diversifying their capabilities.
It sounds like they're building this comprehensive powerhouse of precision engineering.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Despite all of this growth that we've been talking about,
Right.
they still hold less than 1% of the market share
Less than 1%.
in the segments that they serve.
That's wild.
It is. And it just shows the massive potential they have for future growth.
It's like they're just getting started.
Exactly.
But I imagine in these industries, it's not just about getting your foot in the door.
Right.
Like onboarding a new customer probably takes a while.
It does. Yeah, it takes a significant amount of time.
How long are we talking?
We're talking 30 to 48 months. Yeah, and that's because these parts have to go through incredibly rigorous qualification processes.
Right, of course.
Which makes sense given how critical they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's not a quick turnaround, but it also highlights the significant barriers to entry,
Right.
which actually works in AZAD's favor.
It does.
Because it means they're in a really good position to capitalize on that huge growth potential.
Exactly.
They've already made those investments. They've got the time and they've got that expertise.
Yeah.
So what about their financials? How are they looking?
So their profitability has improved considerably,
Okay.
which is thanks in part to reduced finance costs after their IPO.
Right.
And in fact, their adjusted EBITDA margins reached their highest point ever in FY24.
So their financial health is looking pretty good.
Yeah,
And that's really encouraging.
it is. It's a very good sign.
So we've got strong financial smart moves being made.
Yeah.
They're positioned in a market with this huge growth potential.
Mm-hmm.
This is starting to sound like a really compelling story. But before we get ahead of ourselves,
Right.
let's dig a little deeper into their growth guidance
Sure.
and what kind of future projections we're looking at.
Okay.
What kind of numbers are we talking about?
All right. Let's dive in. Well, their order book, it's currently sitting at over INR 3,000 cores.
Okay.
So that gives them, a pretty solid foundation for future revenue.
That's a good sign.
It is. And they're also expecting to maintain those healthy EBITDA margins.
Right.
Between like 33% and 35% moving forward.
Those are some pretty impressive numbers.
Yeah.
But what's actually driving those projections?
Right.
Is it just purely organic growth or are there some other things happening?
It's a mix of things.
Okay.
First, you've got strong demand across all their main segments.
Right.
Aerospace, defense, energy, they're all growing.
Yeah.
And AZAD is in a great spot to benefit from that.
Makes sense.
But on top of that, they've got this new manufacturing facility.
We've talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that? When is that going to be up and running?
That should be operational in fiscal year 26.
Okay.
And that's going to really ramp up their production capacity.
We've mentioned it a couple of times.
Yeah.
Can you give me like a sense of the scale? Yeah. How much bigger is this new facility?
So it's designed to have 10 times the capacity
10 times.
of their current operations.
That's wild.
It is. It's a big jump.
That's a huge statement.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like they're really anticipating some serious growth.
Right. It's not just about meeting what they have now. It's about preparing for the future.
It's that long-term vision.
Exactly. And with those long lead times we talked about, they're really laying the groundwork to grab a bigger piece of the market down the line.
So they've got the demand. They're expanding like crazy.
Yeah.
They're in this market where it's tough to compete.
Right.
It's looking pretty bright for them.
Yeah.
But I mean, no business is perfect.
Oh.
Are there any like risks or challenges?
Well, yeah, nothing's guaranteed.
Right.
Especially in these sectors. Aerospace, defense, energy. Things change all the time.
They do.
One thing that's always a concern is market volatility.
Of course.
Like global economics can shift.
Right.
It impacts demand supply chains, all of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But to their credit, AZAD's been pretty upfront about that.
Okay.
They know it's a possibility.
So they're not ignoring it.
No, they're not just pretending it won't happen.
That's good to know.
Yeah. It shows they're thinking ahead.
It does. It shows they're being realistic.
Right.
Which is important.
It is. And they've actually put some strategies in place to try and handle those risks.
Like what kind of things are they doing?
Well, for one thing, they've diversified their customers.
Okay.
They're not reliant on just one sector.
Right. So if one area slows down.
Exactly. Others can pick up the slack.
Smart.
It's like having a balanced investment portfolio.
I like that analogy.
And they've also got these long-term contracts with their suppliers.
Oh, yeah?
Plus, they keep buffer inventories.
So they're prepared if something disrupts the supply chain.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Which, as we all know...
That has been happening more and more.
Right. So they're being proactive.
They are. They're trying to stay ahead of the curve.
So we've got market volatility. We've got the supply chain stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else they're thinking about?
Well, there's always operational risks.
Right. Just by nature of what they do.
Exactly. I mean, you're working with these incredibly precise...
No room for error.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And AZAD's got these super strict quality assurance protocols.
Makes sense.
They really emphasize that throughout the whole process.
Because when you're dealing with jet engines and missiles,
Yeah.
you can't afford to mess up.
Absolutely. And they're putting a lot of effort into training their workforce.
Oh.
Making sure everyone's up to speed.
Right.
Maintaining those standards.
So it's not just about the technology.
Right.
It's about the people, too.
It's about having a skilled and dedicated team.
I like that. So they're addressing the risks.
Yeah,
which is good to see.
it is.
But let's shift gears a little bit and get back to the financials.
We know their margins are looking strong.
Right.
But what about like concrete revenue projections?
Yeah.
Have they given any guidance on what investors can expect in the next few years?
Yeah, they have. And the numbers look really good. They're projecting revenue growth of like 25% to 30%
Wow.
per year for the next 2 fiscal years.
Okay.
And that's just based on what they have now.
Right, before the new facility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once that's up and running in 26,
Yeah.
we could see even bigger jumps.
So these projections are just the beginning.
Yeah. It's like the tip of the iceberg.
It really seems like that new facility is going to be a game changer.
Yeah, it has the potential.
So what's the long-term view here? What are analysts saying about AZAD's potential down the line?
Analysts are pretty optimistic. They're really bullish on AZAD.
Okay.
And they've pointed out that even with this crazy growth we've been talking about,
Yeah.
they're still just scratching the surface.
Right.
They've got less than 1% of the market share.
It's hard to wrap your head around that.
It is. It's a huge untapped market out there.
With the potential to just explode.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of people are banking on.
So it's not just about where they are now, it's about where they can go.
Absolutely. And I think they're really aware of that.
Okay.
They're making moves to position themselves for the future.
Like what kind of moves?
Well, one thing they're doing is investing a ton in research and development,
Okay.
particularly in these cutting edge areas like additive manufacturing.
Additive manufacturing?
Yeah, basically it's like 3D printing,
Okay.
but on a massive industrial scale.
3D printing jet engines.
It sounds futuristic, right?
It does.
But it has huge potential to change the way things are made.
Wow.
It lets you create these super complex parts with more precision and efficiency.
That's amazing. And what about Industry 4.0?
Oh, yeah. They're all over that, too.
What exactly is Industry 4.0?
It's about creating these smart factories
Okay.
where machines can basically talk to each other,
Wow.
make decisions based on real-time data.
So it's not just about the individual parts.
No.
It's about the whole system.
Exactly. It's about building this interconnected, intelligent manufacturing ecosystem.
It sounds like they're building a company that's not just successful now,
Right.
but like built to last.
Yeah. Prepared for whatever comes next.
And they're doing all of this
Yeah.
while still keeping an eye on sustainability,
Absolutely. They're really committed to that.
which is great to see.
It is. They're focused on lowering their environmental impact, promoting social responsibility, ethical standards.
All the good stuff.
Yeah. It's not just about profits. It's about doing business the right way.
And it seems like that's becoming more and more important for companies.
Oh, absolutely. Consumers, investors, everyone's paying attention to that these days.
It's not just a nice to have anymore.
Nope. It's a must-have.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've talked about AZAD Engineering's journey, their capabilities,
Your financial.
their plans for the future. It's been a really interesting deep dive into a company that's clearly doing some amazing things.
It has. They're definitely one to watch.
So listener, what are your takeaways?
Yeah. What stood out to you?
We always encourage you to keep digging.
Right. Do your own research.
There's always more to learn.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, stay curious.